From hidden Easter eggs you'd never know were there, to products you didn't even know LEGO made. These are 150 LEGO secrets you didn't know existed. Up first is a thing called Design by Me, but it actually isn't an item you can hold in your hands. Design by Me was a computer program that let you build with LEGO online in a 3D software. It was released in 2009, but was unfortunately shut down a few years later in 2012. These days, we have loads of programs like this, one of the most popular ones being Mecha Bricks. But isn't it crazy that LEGO had one of their own? They've tried to do a bunch of different stuff online like this. Whether it's mobile games, augmented reality, or anything else, they clearly want to get their foot in the digital door. Another attempt at this was this weird thing called Life of George. This came out right around the same time as Design by Me in 2011, but instead of being fully online, this one was a combination of real life and a mobile app. The way it worked was you'd buy a set from the theme, download the app, and get prompts on your phone telling you what to build. Then you'd build them as quickly and as accurately as possible, scan it with your camera, and the app would give you a score. Wait, you're telling me they were trying to make LEGO ranked? That is crazy, bro. The idea sounds cool in practice, but just like most of the digital LEGO stuff, it wasn't around for too long. Something they've been doing for a long time, though, are magazine gifts. Every month, LEGO releases a magazine for a bunch of different popular themes. There's one for Ninjago, Star Wars, City, Friends, DC Comics, Marvel, the list goes on. But something they don't really promote outside of the magazines is that you can actually get gifts from them. The name is a little misleading, though, because literally all you have to do is buy the magazine. Knowing LEGO, I thought this was gonna be a raffle or something that you had to get super lucky to win. But nope, all you have to do is buy it. Oh, but you can only get these gifts in Europe. Sorry, forgot to mention that part. This is a pretty L move if you ask me. Subscribe to my channel if you agree. We need to show LEGO that we want these gifts too. Anyways, the next item I want to show you comes from the early 2000s. LEGO was getting pretty experimental around this time, since they finally had their big break with all the money they made from Bionicle. Wait, speaking of Bionicle, did you know that LEGO made a different theme right before it that looked exactly like it? It's pretty crazy, but I'll come back to that in a minute. For now, let me show you this LEGO camera from 2009. Now, I know this might look like a regular old LEGO set, even though the colors are completely random, but take a look at this. Yeah, that's a screen. So this camera actually works. It only has 3 megapixels, so it's not like you're gonna get some super high-res pictures with this thing. But it's the perfect little point and shoot. But what if you're more into taking videos and still really want a LEGO camera? Well, fear not, because LEGO also made this camcorder around 2010. This one is a little harder to find than the camera, but this camcorder was specifically put in the stop animation kit. Not that that'll help any. I literally can't find one for sale anywhere. This little kit came with more than just the camcorder though. It also came with a couple minifigures, a DVD to burn your footage onto, and a little sleeve for the DVD. LEGO gave you literally everything you needed to make your own LEGO stop motion animation, since video cameras were a lot harder to come by back then. Oh, I just remembered. Let me tell you about that Bionicle type theme I mentioned before. So basically, LEGO was going bankrupt, and somehow Bionicle was the theme that was able to pull them out of the mud. But before Bionicle, there was a theme called LEGO Slicer. The theme had 14 sets and was only around from 1999 to 2000, literally 1 year before the first Bionicle set ever came out. And if you look at a few sets from the Slicer theme, I'd say those pretty much look like worse Bionicles. Slicer was actually part of the Technic theme, unlike Bionicle, but it literally fell flat on its face. So it's kinda nuts that LEGO still went through with making Bionicle. I mean, Slicer was basically a test run, and look what happened to it. This isn't even the first time LEGO's done something like this either. You know how we have the intelligent brick from the EV3 Mindstorm set that lets you code whatever you want onto it? Well, back in the 90s, LEGO released this thing called Code Pilot, and it was basically the first thing they ever made involving coding. It wasn't anywhere near as customizable as the intelligent brick, since you can actually code with that thing. But the way it worked is actually super interesting. Basically, you'd hook up the piece to whatever set it came with, which LEGO only made 2 of, but that's a different story. Then you'd use it to scan barcodes that had movements embedded in them. Every one you scanned would get stored in the piece's computer, but the problem was you can only control one motor with this piece. So even though it sounded good in practice, if the set had more than one motor, it'd be basically useless. Like I said before though, LEGO was super experimental around this time. time. And another item that makes this painfully obvious is this Lego water gun. This thing was actually part of the long-forgotten Aqua Raiders theme. And even though it's obsolete now, Lego was pushing it really hard back in the day. They made 7 sets for it in the year it came out, 2007. But adding a water gun into the mix isn't even that bad of an idea. I definitely loved playing with them every once in a while when I was a kid. So if I knew there was a Lego one, I would have been all over it. Funnily enough though, this isn't even the only water gun Lego ever made. They also made one for Bionicle. It's called the Barracky Pump Action Water Gun, and it was branded with the Warlords from Bionicle, otherwise known as the Barracky. This one also came out in 2007. So are you starting to see what I mean now? Lego really was doing whatever they wanted in the early 2000s. These days, they have way more money, so they're able to make stuff like this Nike basketball. Wait, what? Lego made a Nike basketball? Hold on, I actually didn't even know about this. I thought all they had was the Nike Dunk set with the funny little minifigure. Man, it really is hard to keep up with Lego these days. Anyways, moving on from that, this next item is probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen Lego make, but it's gonna need some context, so stay with me. Basically, Lego launched the Ultra Agents theme back in 2014, and it was one of the more successful themes for that time period. And remember before when I said that Lego always wanted to have their foot in the digital door? Well, they took another step forward with this theme. The lore for it got so deep that they made a mobile game with missions to defeat Antimatter, the villain in the theme. Don't worry though, this isn't the cool part. Lego wanted to make these missions as interactive as possible, so they made this thing called an app brick. But this isn't just any regular old Lego brick. This thing is infused with a special carbon that conducts electricity from your finger to a touchscreen. I'll throw a video of how these were used up on screen now, but basically you use these bricks to make different gadgets that could actually be used in the game. And since these carbon-infused bricks were attached to them, they'd interact with the screen and the game could recognize them. Isn't that sick? I mean, yeah, Ultra Agents got retired a year after it was introduced, but come on, this app brick thing is pretty sweet. All of these attempts at interactive digital Lego stuff was just Lego trying to make sure they stayed relevant in this new technological era. But what were they doing before technology was as big as it is today? Were they still trying to dip their toes into other industries to keep their name in the loop? Well, we kind of saw it before with the water guns, but the answer is absolutely yes. And another way they did this was by collabing with cereal brands. Now, they don't do it as much as they used to, but these brands used to put toys in their cereal boxes all the time. And this was a perfect way for Lego to worm themselves into a different world that still had the same audience. The first company Lego collabed with was Weetabix in 1970. Their first set together was this castle, but they went on to make 7 more sets together all the way up to 1989. After this, Lego collabed with Kellogg's and made some sets you've probably seen before, Toucan Sam and Tony the Tiger. These guys are worth a bunch of money now, but back in the 90s, you could have pulled one just by buying a box of cereal. They also made some regular Lego sets too. I'm not exactly sure how many, but there were definitely a fair few of them. Now, we can all agree that every cereal box set I've shown you so far looks like Lego, right? Well, wait until you see what they made when they collabed with Cookie Crisps in 2005. For some reason, they decided to make 5 knights in 5 different colors. And the only reason you really knew they were Lego was because of a few studs on their shields. I really have no idea what they were thinking with this one. There must have been something in the air in the early 2000s or something. Whatever it was seemed to stick with them though, because Lego continued to make some outrageous stuff, even as recently as 2021. This is the Lego video theme, spelled VIDIYO for some reason. And Lego was trying to build something huge with it. The whole point of the theme was to make music videos on the video app, using these things called beat boxes. They were basically little boxes that came with a minifigure, and when you put them on camera in the app, everything would come to life. The minifig would start dancing, the beatbox would get some special effects, and a whole bunch of other stuff. The app also had its own built-in social media where you could post the music videos you made. This project was absolutely huge. I mean, Lego made 43 of these beatboxes with different minifigures in less than a year. But the theme never really caught on. The page on Lego's website for it talks about what it used to be, which is kind of sad. But because of how different this theme was, I think people were a little thrown off. Imagine how thrown off you'd be if you walked into a Lego store and saw this sitting on the shelves though. Spybotics? What even is that? Well, this theme came and stayed in 2002. And this is another one of those themes where Lego was just doing way too much. Only 4 sets were ever made for this theme, and they all came with a controller, a serial cable with an infrared transceiver, and a software to program the sets. These things were quite literally Lego robots, but the whole point of them was to code missions into the software and, well, do them. Every set came with different equipment, so some were better than others depending on what mission you were doing. Honestly, these things weren't even a bad idea, but I mean, Lego Star Wars had just come out, so people had different priorities. This next theme is full of stuff that was also a really good idea, but even when you give people exactly what they want, sometimes they realize they never wanted it in the first place. I'm talking about the extra theme. Every set in this theme were just a bunch of extra pieces in some random category. There were street lamps, food accessories, botanical accessories, traffic lights, and there were even play mats for different biomes depending on what you were building. People have been complaining forever about Lego not including stuff like this in sets, but when they made this theme in 2018, nobody really seemed to care. Lego tried holding on and made 17 sets in 3 years, but ultimately everything got retired in 2021. Such a shame. Quick question for you though. We all know about the Lego VIP rewards from the Insider program, right? Well, these next few items are going to be some of the coolest ones from the VIP program, starting with this retro lunchbox. This was available back in 2022 and was worth 2,500 VIP points. But this lunchbox is a lot more special than you might think. Obviously, the theme is very retro, but the art on the front here is actually an ad for Lego from way back in the day. When you went to buy the lunchbox, the little description said, "What a throwback. The iconic 1965 advert is back, but this time in tin form." And this is coming straight from Lego, so you know it's true. Now, I personally wasn't around back in 1965, so I don't know how iconic this ad truly is. But if there are any old timers watching this video, let me know if you remember seeing it down in the comments. Anyways, the last items I want to show you are actually collectible coins. I didn't even know about this until I made this video, but apparently Lego's been making these coins for a while, and they make them for a bunch of different stuff. In 2021, Lego made a few of them for the classic themes we all know, and it even came with this little holder. But these aren't the only types of coins they make. They also made a couple for the Mario theme when it first came out, but the 5 most recent ones have all been for Lego Star Wars. Not all of them are exactly coins, but they made one for insiders who bought the Venator-class Republic attack cruiser, one for the 40th anniversary of the Return of the Jedi, one for the 25th anniversary of the Lego Star Wars theme, one for the May the 4th celebration in 2024, and another one for Star Wars Day in 2025. They only started making these coins a few years ago, but I have a funny feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of them as time goes on. This license plate is actually a reference to the first comic book Spider-Man ever appeared in. The AFA stands for Amazing Fantasy, and 0015 stands for the issue number, 15. Lego is always hiding stuff like this in license plates, but there's an entire room in the Daily Bugle that's a reference in and of itself. It may not look like much, just a green room with a desk and a picture of Spider-Man in the back, but once you add a Spider-Man minifigure behind the desk, it should all start coming back to you. This room is a reference to none other than the Spider-Man desk meme, one of the most popular memes with Spider-Man. It's literally hiding in plain sight, and yet not everybody even knows it's there. Those are by far the easiest ones to miss. Like, there's a reference staring right at you in the Sanctum Sanctorum set. Literally. You notice this giant eyeball with tentacles on the outside of the building? Well, it also happens to be in one of the rooms too, but that's not the detail I'm talking about. This monster is actually Gargantos, who made an appearance in the Multiverse of Madness movie. He's not quite as menacing and all-powerful as he was in the movies or comics, but most people skip right over him because he's so prominent in the set. But getting back to super small details, have you ever noticed anything about this dumpster in the X-Men Mansion set? Believe me, I know how it sounds, but yes, this frog sitting on top of the dumpster is there for a reason. This little guy actually represents Toad. He's Magneto's slimy little servant, and is part of Magneto's brotherhood of evil mutants in the comics. This isn't all this dumpster has to offer though. Just take a look inside. There's a bunch of random stuff sitting inside of it. Obviously, it's a dumpster. But just like the frog, a lot of this stuff is there for a reason. The fedora is a reference to Beast, the sword is a reference to Nightcrawler, and the coin? Well, the coin goes a little deeper. This coin represents the one that Magneto used to kill Sebastian Shaw in the X-Men First Class movie. It was very famously a nickel, and if we look at the Lego one, yup, that's definitely a nickel. Isn't it crazy that you can find all of this stuff in a piece that can fit in the palm of your hand? The only thing that might be crazier is that people are saying it's impossible to subscribe in 3 seconds or less. Let's see if they're right. Ready? Go. Could you subscribe? Let me know, because I hope that glitch is gone for good. Getting back to the small details, there's actually one more I want to show you in the X-Men Mansion set, and it's super subtle. Do you see these claw marks right here? They're right outside the front door to the mansion, and considering this is an X-Men set, obviously Wolverine's claws are going to be littered all over it. But this one in particular is something special. It's referencing the time Wolverine did an Akira bike slide in X-Men Origins. I could talk all day about how famous this bike slide is, but when Wolverine did his, he dug his claws into the ground to do a quick 180. So that's why they're here in the set. It's one of my favorite details in any LEGO Marvel set, but some other good ones can be found in the Avengers Tower set. The first one I want to show you is actually hidden all the way in the back corner. For some reason, LEGO had you put this tile piece with a sticker on it in a spot that makes absolutely no sense. Even looking at it now, you might not know what it is. But this is actually the pager that Nick Fury used to contact Captain Marvel in the end credit scene in Infinity War. After Nick Fury gets erased from existence, it falls to the ground, and this piece in the set is referencing exactly that. Another small piece you might have missed is sitting on the floor in the foyer to the tower. This blue cube is there to represent the Tesseract that Loki used in the first Avengers movie. Clearly, LEGO likes to mix in references from all across the MCU, and this next reference is the cherry on top. There's a memorial stone outside for the Battle of New York from the first Avengers movie, which you would think is from that movie, but it's actually from the Hawkeye TV show. There's a scene where he starts to get a little nostalgic and stares at the sign, so I guess LEGO wanted to honor that scene and add it to the set. If it isn't obvious yet, literally every little thing in these sets could mean something, like this cheeseburger in the Iron Man Armory set. Now this one might be a little more obvious for the Iron Man fans, but this cheeseburger is referencing a very specific joke in the first Iron Man movie. Once Tony Stark was rescued from Afghanistan, there was only one thing he wanted: a cheeseburger. He even told his driver to go take him to get one before going to the hospital, which Piper was not very happy about. He literally had just walked off the plane from Afghanistan, so of course LEGO had to give Tony's beloved cheeseburger a spot in the set. Another Iron Man set with big Easter eggs that are still super easy to miss is the Iron Man Armory set. The first one is on the table where Tony gets all his work done. There are two different blueprints here. I have absolutely no idea what's supposed to be on the left one, but the right one is actually the blueprints Howard Stark used to make Captain America's vibranium shield. This is a pretty cool reference, but honestly, the next one is way better. Once you build the set, you end up with this three-piece table that kind of looks like one of those train table things. But these three pieces are actually the ground plans for Stark Expo, something that his father Howard had been working on. It doesn't end here though. When Tony finds these plans in Iron Man 2, he takes them in his car so he can get a better look at them. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, yes, you absolutely can stack these things up in the LEGO car, just like how Tony did in the movie. For such a small set, it's crazy how deep the references go. But that's what this video is all about, small details. So for the next one, let me take you to the Bro Thor's new Asgard set. Unfortunately, Thor ended up being a big part of the comedic relief in Avengers Endgame, and when they showed us his new lifestyle, the whole theater was laughing their bricks off. So of course LEGO had to keep the comedy train going and throw in their own jokes. It seems like Thor bought his pizza from a place called Storm Bakers. I feel like I've heard that name before. Oh yeah, it's because his weapon's name is Stormbreaker. The real star of that scene though was Noobmaster69. We all remember when Thor got on the mic and had a little word with this guy on Fortnite. The clip went absolutely viral once the movie came out. So what choice did LEGO have other than to reference his gamer tag on the sticker for the TV? That clip is super funny, so I was glad to see LEGO bring it over to one of their sets. But one thing I haven't shown you yet is when LEGO references characters from a completely different series. For this one, I'm gonna have to take you to the Sanctum Sanctorum Showdown set, a smaller version of the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is super fitting because this detail is almost impossible to spot. There's a little red newspaper box sitting outside of the set, nothing out of the ordinary until you read the side of it. All of the newspaper in this box is coming from the New York Bulletin. This company is famously shown in Daredevil, but I guess since Daredevil and Strange are both from Earth 616, technically that box does belong there. Now that I think about it, there are a few super sick Easter eggs I missed in the big Sanctum Sanctorum set. In one of the hallways, you can find 3 open doors that all lead to different places. It's theorized that the one on the right is supposed to represent the Dark Dimension, but the other 2 are the portals that Strange used to fight the servants of Dormammu. This is a pretty cool cameo that I honestly didn't expect to see in this set. But there's one more cameo that might be even better. On the top floor of the building, we can see a portrait of the Ancient One on the right side of the room. This is the same woman that taught Strange everything he knows, so it only makes sense to honor her and show her some respect. If I'm gonna show you LEGO cameos though, then I have to show you a super discreet one in the Daily Bugle. On the back door of the Bugle, there's some text that says Eddie was here. This is there for a guy named Eddie Brock, or in other words, Venom. Now, obviously this fits here because Venom is a huge part of the Spider-Man story, but what you might not know is that Eddie started out as a photographer for the Daily Bugle, just like Peter Parker. So his name being here goes a lot deeper than Venom's connection to Spider-Man. Another super cool reference in this set is hidden right in front of your face, but it's also kind of hidden in the fine print. There's a big tile piece on the front of the Bugle showing a news segment with Jameson, two other guys, and the Scarlet Spider. Now, at first glance, it looks like this thing is just here for decoration, but those two guys are actually very important. Their names are Dr. Kurt Connors and Professor Miles Warren, two people who are sworn enemies of Spider-Man. Kurt Connors is the Lizard, and Miles Warren is the Jackal. Unfortunately, we never got a movie with the Jackal in it, but I'm sure you remember the Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man. Keeping the Spider-Man references going, let me take you to a set called The Attack on the Spider Lair. The set itself is nothing special, but the amount of references there are in one small spot is unreal. They're all in this 6-monitor setup. Let me show them to you. First off, there's a clear reference to the LEGO Marvel video games in the bottom right. Then on top of that, there's an email from Jameson calling Peter's picture horrible and firing him. But my favorite one by far is on the screen in the bottom left. There are a few different spider suits on display, but do you notice anything about the one on the top right? It looks a little weird for sure, but that's because it belongs to the bombastic Bagman, an alternate persona of Spider-Man. We've only ever seen him in the comics and a few games, so I was super surprised to see him get referenced in this set. After looking at that screen on the bottom right, that reminds me that I haven't shown you anything from LEGO Marvel video games. So let me show you something that's super cool. It's in LEGO Marvel Superheroes and has to do with character transformation. As I'm sure you know, every character has their own special transformation in this game, but Stan Lee has one that's a little surprising. Somehow, he's able to transform into his own version of the Hulk. Not a Mark Ruffalo Hulk, not a Lou Ferrigno Hulk, but a Stan Lee Hulk. And as cool as this is, it actually doesn't end here. If you go to the elevator on the SHIELD helicarrier and transform while going down, you end up with this super sick, almost Hulk version of Stan Lee. Getting back to real-life LEGO though, the last few details I want to show you are in the Avengers Endgame Final Battle set. A huge part of the final battle in the actual movie was the van from the Ant-Man series. And as you can see, it's very much a part of this set. But the most important thing about it is the fact that you can get to the quantum realm with it. So there's no way LEGO could replicate that, right? Well, they actually did, and they did a really good job too. The piece in the back looks just like the portal from the movies, and still lets you open and close the door to the van. But the next and last detail in this video is in the bottom left room of the set. To win the final battle, we all remember the huge sacrifice Tony Stark made to save the universe. But that glove wasn't just found on the ground. He made it himself, and it's sitting right there in that room. I know it doesn't really look like it, but look at the panels on the side of it. This is definitely that same glove that he used to snap Thanos out of existence. And it's in the LEGO Ninjago City Garden set. This is one of the biggest sets in the entire Ninjago theme, so as a result, it also has an insane amount of Easter eggs and references. But the one I want to show you is actually this gray minifigure sitting all by itself. All the die-hard Ninjago fans probably got this off rip, but this is actually a memorial for Zane, one of the 6 main ninjas in the Ninjago TV show. He actually died way more than once, but because of how significant it was, the designers gave him his very own memorial. The only thing better than references like these is when LEGO references other themes in their sets, like what they did in the Indiana Jones Temple of the Golden Idol set. This set is super small, so you'd think it'd be pretty difficult to slip a reference in here, but it's actually hiding in plain sight. The set shows Indy doing what he does best, stealing treasure from underground. But if you have Jimmy Neutron level LEGO knowledge, you might have noticed something on the wall where the Golden Idol is sitting. One of the faces is actually a King Kahuka mask from the LEGO Islanders theme, which hasn't been around since 2001. There's also a funny little minifigure head sticking his tongue out on the other side, which is pretty funny. But to catch that Islanders mask, you'd really need to know your stuff. There's no way you know this next one though. Apparently, it's impossible to subscribe to my channel in 3 seconds or less. So let's put it to the test. I'm gonna start a timer. So if you can do it, let me know down in the comments. Ready? Go. Now that that's done, let's move on to the next reference. A few years ago, Tiago Catarino left LEGO for personal reasons and ended up becoming a super well-known LEGO YouTuber. When he worked at LEGO, he designed the Ship in a Bottle set and left a little tile piece with his initials TC on the set. Fast forward a couple years later, and he actually has his very own gravestone piece that's been featured in 2 different sets. The first one is the Haunted House set from 2020, which Tiago helped with before he left. To honor his work at LEGO, his designer friends made that tombstone piece and put him in the front yard to honor his memory and everything he did at LEGO. It's a funny joke, since of course he isn't dead, but the second set this piece is in is the Titanic. Before Tiago left LEGO, he actually pitched a LEGO Titanic idea to them, and not too long after, an official set was released. Tiago wasn't taking any credit for this, but then he saw that very same gravestone piece in the instructions, and how else could you react besides being super excited? LEGO designers include themselves in their sets all the time, like Tiago did with the Haunted House. But nobody does it quite like Chris McVie. Chris started working at LEGO in 2019, and one of his most well-known sets is the modular police station set. Not only does it have the super famous laundromat billboard reference, but there are tons of play features too. But the best part by far is how Chris slipped himself into this set. There seems to be a donut thief on the loose, stealing all of the cops' favorite food. But if we take a look at this minifigure, then look at this picture of Chris, something's going on here. Are you telling me that the donut thief has been Chris McVie the whole time? This is a super funny cameo, but the modular buildings theme is full of cool stuff like this, like the one in the boutique hotel set. This is the 16th set in the modular building series, but did you know that 20 of these sets were designed by the LEGO creator experts? These are some of the most talented people at LEGO, and this is actually the team that Tiago presented the Titanic idea to back in 2019. They've made sets like the Manchester United Stadium from 2020, the Porsche 911 from 2021, the Taj Mahal from 2017, the list goes on and on. Not too many people knew about this theme before the Titanic set was released, and after that huge success, they probably wanted to pay themselves some respect. And to do that, they included a brick-built version of the creator expert logo in the boutique hotel set. These other 2 builds are also references, but the whole point was that it looks like a mini art gallery. And I have to say, the creator expert logo fits right in. Another set with seamless references that you never know about is the Lion Knights Castle set. This is LEGO's modern take on the super famous castle theme, and honestly, the set looks really good. It's a giant gray castle with knights, wizards, forestmen, and so many more iconic minifigures, but the references are hiding inside. This castle can actually be open on the backside, and if you look at the top room on the second from the right side, these weird yellow bricks might ring a bell. Well, it's because they're actually a mini brick-built version of the now $10,000 yellow castle set from 1979. It's by far one of LEGO's most famous sets, so it's no wonder the designers referenced it here. However, I did say there were multiple references, and the second one is a lot easier to find with the castle closed. On the right side of the castle, you'll see this giant tree with a beehive in it, and because of the minifigures in this set, we know who this tree belongs to. The Forestmen are most famously known for their hideouts, so of course LEGO had to include one in this set. You can actually flip the rocks sitting on the water and find that little hideout, but it doesn't end there. Once this is open, you can also slide the back wall of a prison cell over, showing that a particular cell has a major defect. This is definitely one of the coolest play features LEGO's made recently. But switching gears, I actually want to take you back to the LEGO Ninjago City Garden set. Like I said, there are loads of Easter eggs and references in this set, but did you know there's a literal Easter egg in this set? Okay, I guess it's not exactly literal, like the one in the Atari set, but do you see all these tile pieces with Japanese writing? Well, one of them actually directly translates to Easter egg, which is pretty sick. But why is this tile piece even here? And where can you find it? Well, you actually have to completely remove this little ninja shop, and you'll find it sitting underneath it. That isn't it though. This tile was covering a gray box with a 1x1 green transparent piece, and this is by far one of the deepest cuts I've seen in a LEGO set. This singular piece is actually a reference to a giant cyberpunk city made by Brolug that was on display at Brickworld in Chicago in 2013. Now, Brolug was actually a group of people that made huge builds like this one, and from what I can find, the designer of Ninjago City Gardens, Marcus Rollbuehler, was never in the group, so I guess he made the reference simply because he liked the build. It all started with that Japanese tile piece though, and funnily enough, there are pieces like this in a bunch of different sets, like the LEGO Star Wars cantina. I'm talking about this piece with R2-D2 and C-3PO on it, with a line of this weird language on top. This isn't just some weird language though, it's Orubesh, the most spoken language in the Star Wars universe. It translates to the word wanted, which actually makes perfect sense for this set. In A New Hope, an Imperial spy named Garandan Ez Zavor was informing the Empire about Luke and everyone he was with, and he actually got his own minifigure in the set. In the movie, everyone escaped safely, but as a result, the two droids ended up on the Empire's wanted list. This is probably because Darth Vader heard about what happened on Tatooine and wanted to get his hands on them immediately. After all, they are his old friends. Not that they'd be happy to see him after what happened though. Yeesh. Anyways, the next references I want to show you are in the LEGO Seinfeld set. This set dropped back in 2021, and as cool as it is, I actually want to show you the fridge. It's decked out with magnets, with the most obvious one being Superman. This one is here just like it is in the real show, but there's a specific picture on the LEGO fridge that isn't on the real one, and it really stands out. I'm talking about this random dude. Like me, you might be wondering who this guy is. Well, his name is Larry David, and he's actually one of the main people that helped Jerry Seinfeld produce the show. Props to LEGO for showing David some love. I guess he just wasn't cool enough to get his face on the fridge in the real show. But then again, he's not Superman. Up next is the fact that this Women of NASA set is a reference in and of itself. The set features 4 women: Nancy Grace Roman, Margaret Hamilton, Sally Ride, and Mae Jemison. All of these women played critical roles in getting NASA to where it is today. Whether it be astronomy, engineering, physics, you name it, and one of these 4 women probably did it. Now, let me direct your attention to Margaret Hamilton. Her big role was being a computer programmer, which for the 1960s is a huge deal. If it wasn't for her, NASA literally never would have been able to get Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. So they have her to thank. Now, about that reference. Her build in LEGO might look like nothing, but it's actually referencing this picture of her standing next to her source code for the Apollo guidance computer in 1969. It's by far her most famous picture, so it only makes sense that LEGO would honor it in this set. While I'm talking about space, let me show you some super discreet references in the LEGO Galaxy Explorer from 2022. Just like the Cantina and Ninjago City Garden sets, the tile pieces in here have some super sick references. Since this set is a spaceship, there are a lot of different computer screens on the inside. Now, you'd think these would just have random fake planets on them, or maybe even binary code, but 2 of them in particular are way cooler than that. One of them is this radar scanner piece, and if you know your LEGO themes, you'll know that this is actually the Blacktron logo. Blacktron is the name of the villain group in the space theme, so this logo fits perfectly into this set. The second tile piece is in the living quarters in the back of the ship, but instead of a radar scanner, it's actually supposed to be a live video feed. Now, this may look like literally nothing, but this giant circle thing is actually a Tahoe canister from Bionicle. It looks like this video feed is one of the astronauts finding life on another planet, which is a little funny, since Bionicle's been dead for a while now. Getting back down to Earth, there's actually a really cool reference hiding in the attic of the LEGO Disney Castle set from 2016. Disney's made a million different spin-offs and characters since they started back in 1923, so the amount of references that could be here is off the charts. However, the designers chose a really specific movie to reference: Fantasia. This movie is from 1940 and is a lot different from regular Disney movies. Instead of your regular story, there are 8 different segments that all look completely different and tell a different story. And of course, Mickey Mouse is in his magical outfit, which came from this movie. Now, if we make our way to the attic of the LEGO set, we can actually see Mickey's Fantasia hat sitting in a chest in storage. It doesn't fit on his head or anything, which honestly would have been really cool, but the fact that Fantasia got referenced at all is pretty crazy. Another set with references that are high in the sky is the LEGO Tree of Creativity set. If you've never seen this set before, don't worry, you're not going crazy. It was originally given to people who went to the LEGO Inside Tour back in 2017, but then was later sold at the LEGO House in Denmark, so it's no wonder you've never seen it on the shelves. The craziest part about this set, though, isn't the fact that it's super rare, and it isn't the fact that there are references to LEGO themes all over it. It's the fact that it's a mini version of the real LEGO Tree of Creativity. Yes, that's actually a thing. The reason this set was sold in the LEGO House is because that's actually where you can find the real tree. It's over 45 feet tall and made up of over 6 million bricks. Just like its mini counterpart, there are smaller builds all over the leaves. But the most notable one is the crane at the top. Just like Margaret Hamilton in the Women of NASA set, the Tree of Creativity is a reference in and of itself. But this last one is a classic LEGO Easter egg. It's hidden in the Penguin set, and just like how it is with most Easter eggs, it's literally nowhere to be found. But this one is actually hidden under the set, just like that insane reference in the Ninjago City Garden set. You have to take literally everything off, but once you do, you'll find a very fitting snowflake. LEGO does this a lot in their small seasonal sets, like this carrot hiding in the Easter Bunny set, or this bat hiding in the owl set for Halloween. This just proves that no matter how small the set is, there's always something to find. Besides those sets from the Coca-Cola soccer theme, there's literally nothing in those. This is everyone's least favorite part of a LEGO set. You try your best to get it on straight, just like how it is in the instructions, but it's always just a little bit off. These things have gotten way more common in today's sets, but it wasn't always like this. LEGO fans all over the internet talk about how it feels like there are way more stickers in sets than there ever used to be, but finding the actual evidence is pretty difficult. The best I got is this picture of a tile piece that I don't even know the name of, but it's a perfect example of what's been going on. Another element that's been phased out over the years are wires, but this one is probably for the best. These days, most of the motors are battery powered, but back in the day, they had to be hooked up to a power source just so they could run. They were mostly used in the Power Functions theme, and since it started back in 2008, it makes sense why LEGO wasn't really making wireless stuff yet. A big change that was hiding right under our noses though, was the disappearance of fabric capes. These things were in basically every set I wanted when I was a kid. Jedis wore capes, and so did superheroes, so I was putting these things on minifigures all the time back in the day. As of recently though, LEGO's been starting to phase them out. A bunch of different minifigures have rubber capes now. There's Batman in the Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze fight set, Magneto in the X-Men Mansion set, and Thor in the Thor vs. Surtur construction figure set. As cool as these pieces look, they kind of limit what LEGO's able to do with them. Back in the 1990s, they introduced this multicolored dragon cape in the system theme, which looks sick, but if they tried to do this with the new rubber capes, I feel like it wouldn't look as good. I guess this update is kind of hit or miss, but this next one was an absolute downgrade, no doubt. Do you notice how there aren't really any shiny pieces in LEGO anymore? There used to be a bunch of them, on lightsaber hilts, vintage crowns for the castle theme, and even on certain minifigures, but we just don't get them anymore. Luckily, there is an actual explanation for this one. Basically, because the paint LEGO was using wasn't the best quality, it peeled off pretty fast. So at one point or another, they just started using a color called metal light gray for silver, and a bunch of different ones for gold. They don't look anywhere near as good, and to be honest, I feel like LEGO should have just found a better chrome paint to use. Am I spinning here? I feel like that definitely would have been the better move, but let me know what you think. Moving on from chrome pieces though, LEGO actually made a super small update to their bricks somewhat recently. After they patented the stud and tube coupling system in 1958, the bricks were much better at keeping themselves together. But looking at this brick today, something just seems off about it, right? Well, it's because they hadn't added the support beams to the tubes yet. This became very common around 2008, so it makes sense why when I look at bricks that don't have these beams, they almost look naked. LEGO doesn't just make tiny updates to pieces though, they do it to minifigures too. Back in the early 2000s, you could buy a magnetic minifigure that didn't have this giant brick podium underneath it. They made a few different sets, but the most popular one was the LEGO Batman set. But what was wrong with these minifigures? If they were so cool, why did they end up changing it? Well, the magnets were actually little pieces in the back of the minifigure's legs, and once parents of young kids found out about it, they weren't too happy. LEGO had to stop making magnetic minifigures this way because it was a choking hazard, which is honestly a shame. The seamless look these Batman minifigures have compared to the ones we have now is so much better. Depending on what you're looking at, sometimes the old LEGO really was just better. And a perfect example of that is what LEGO did to the box design for LEGO Castle. The castle theme always had a blue sky with clouds in the background on the box. It was a super nice design for the theme, and it was a surefire way to know that you were buying a castle set. LEGO Castle has actually been retired since 2016 now, but because of how famous it was, they turned it into a sub-theme of the Icon series in 2022. Now, I don't have any problems with the sets in this sub-theme. In fact, I think the Lion Knight's castle is one of the coolest LEGO castles ever, but every set in the Icons theme comes in a blacked out box. Now, they didn't do that for this set in particular, but if you're going to change the design on the box, why not give it the classic blue sky that everyone knows and loves? This change didn't really make sense to me. but LEGO fans had it way worse than this before 1990. This is gonna sound crazy, but LEGO didn't make the first brick separator until that year. So before then, if you had two 1x2 plate pieces stacked on top of each other, you were basically cooked. But even then, we didn't get the one we have now until 2011. For some reason, all they did was change the color a few different times over the years, then come out of nowhere with the orange one in 2011. If you were playing with LEGO before the 90s, you definitely would have noticed this update. So let me show you something I guarantee you haven't noticed. This is a transparent brick. Looks pretty good, right? Well, what if I told you that this is actually an old design, and that most of the transparent bricks these days look like this? Yeah, I know. This downgrade is up there with the chrome change. I mean, why would you want to make transparent bricks less transparent? Now, don't get me wrong, certain sets have bricks that are super see-through, but that's definitely not the case for all of them. I can't lie, I've been hating on LEGO pretty hard with these last few updates. So let me show you one that was actually one of the best moves they've ever made. Obviously, we all know how LEGO instructions work. You look at the page and it tells you what to do. But back in the day, this was definitely not the case. These are a couple pages of instructions for set 948 from 1978. I mean, this is basically a free-for-all. There are a few arrows pointing you in the right direction, but for the most part, you're completely on your own. This isn't even as bad as it gets, though. Let me show you the difference between the original Forest Men hideout set from 1988 versus the remastered one from 2022. These are a few pages from the 2022 version. Nothing out of the ordinary, of course. But look at the pages from the one from 1988. I mean, this is just crazy. The difference between page 2 and 4 is out of this world, and they barely even told you anything. Like I said, this update was 100% needed, so let's take a look at another one. This is a police officer minifigure from 1978, but I bet you already knew that. This guy looks old. There isn't a whole lot going on with this minifigure, so when you compare it to one of the police officers we have today, it's a night and day difference. I'd be super surprised if any of you missed this change over the years, but I had to throw it in here, because imagine LEGO released a minifigure with this amount of detail today. There'd be an entire mob outside their HQ. Something people should riot over, though, is LEGO taking away light-up bricks. Specifically, light-up lightsabers for LEGO Star Wars. I've been a LEGO Star Wars fan my whole life, and I completely missed this update. Back in the early 2000s, they released a special type of Star Wars minifigure. All you had to do was put a stud on the back of the hilt and push the head down. Then the lightsaber would come to life. I genuinely can't believe I missed something as cool as this, especially since I literally could have gotten some when I was a kid. But I guess it just goes to show how sneaky LEGO can be. Another element they added then slowly took away like this were Legoland pamphlets showing off their new sets. I'm not exactly sure when they started putting these in boxes, and honestly, I'm not even sure when they stopped. All I do know is that they did it before and they don't do it now. Pretty much every single one of these pamphlets is considered to be vintage LEGO, which means they probably haven't done it since before the year 2000. These pamphlets had all sorts of cool looking promo for sets that were coming out soon. Like, look at this one I found on eBay. There's promo for sets from a bunch of different themes. Space, pirates, Technic, it's all the classics. This wasn't the only thing that was common with old boxes though. LEGO also used to show off a bunch of different ways to build a set on the box. I'm not talking about a 3-in-1 set though, where the entire point is to build it one way, take it apart, and build it another way with the help of instructions. These builds were put there purely to spark the imagination. These days, it kind of feels like LEGO only makes sets that are meant to be built once, then put on display. But back in the day, they were super dedicated to the play features, and wanted people to make all sorts of cool stuff with their bricks, no matter what the instructions said. We don't really see that too often these days, and I doubt they're ever bringing it back. But if there's anything that LEGO was doing before that they might actually bring back one day, it's what I'm about to show you next. Back in the 90s, LEGO collabed with Kellogg's, the cereal brand. And I'm not too sure what gets put in cereal boxes these days, but back in my day, there was always some cool toy or prize that you had a chance of winning. The only way to find out was to open the box and pray. And back in the 90s, you might have gotten lucky enough to see a polybag for a Toucan Sam set fall out. It wasn't just him though. You also had a chance of winning Tony the Tiger or the Keebler Man. All three of these sets are super uncommon now, and I wasn't even born when they were around. But this is something I could definitely see LEGO coming back to. Something they're absolutely never doing again though is painting directly onto pieces instead of using a print. Let me show you what I mean. Not too long ago, it wasn't uncommon for LEGO to use paint on certain pieces. They did this a lot with head accessories for minifigures, but the most obvious ones were the headdresses in the LEGO Indians theme. This design is clearly painted on, not printed, and it's become so rare that a certain minifigure in LEGO Star Wars is worth an insane amount of money, simply because the headpiece was painted. It's in the Cloud City set, which was already exclusive, so that definitely helps drive up the price. But I'm talking about the Boba Fett minifigure. The design on his helmet was painted on, instead of printed, like how most minifigures were in 2003. This is the only Boba Fett minifigure that has this design style, and because of it, it's worth over $2,000. And the set it's in is worth over $8,000. Like I said though, I don't think they're ever bringing this back. And another thing that's in the same boat are 32 by 32 base plates. At one point or another, LEGO completely phased out adding base plates to their sets, and it's been like this for so long that I bet you didn't even know they did it in the first place. Literally the only theme that still has them is the modular buildings theme, and that's because if they didn't, the sets wouldn't be modular. From the 1970s to the 1990s, LEGO was including these things in a bunch of different sets. It's in the police headquarters from 1979, the Shell service station from 1983, the airport set from 1985, and way more. It's been in 102 different sets in total, most of which were released in that 20-year period. So it's safe to say that if it's not modular, it's not getting one of these base plates. We can all agree that it'd be nice to have a few of these things laying around. But sometimes LEGO makes something super sick, adds it to a few sets, then retires it for good. Back in 1993, they released the Imperial flagship set in the Pirates theme, and as cool as the ship is, I want to focus on just one singular piece. You see this compass right here? It might look like a regular printed compass piece, but it actually works. This was the first set to ever have this piece, but the thing is, only 9 other sets in LEGO history have ever included this piece. The last ones being the Spaniard ship and the pirate battleship in 2001. This piece never got the love it deserved, and as cool as it is, I don't think it ever will. LEGO put this thing in the vault a long time ago, and I doubt it'll ever be featured in a set again. Now, typically, you'd probably be looking for a reference from another Indiana Jones movie, or maybe even Star Wars, since they were both made by George Lucas. But not this time. Funnily enough, there are technically 2 LEGO references in this set, and they're both in the room with the golden idol. The first one is this minifigure face with their tongue sticking out on one of the tiles, which is pretty funny. And the second one is actually pretty similar. Most of these tile pieces are very similar besides this one, and if you don't have insane LEGO knowledge, you probably would have skipped right over it. Believe it or not, this is actually a reference to the King Kahuka mask from LEGO Islanders, a sub-theme of LEGO Pirates that hasn't been around since 2001. Like I said, you would need pretty good LEGO knowledge to catch this one, but this next reference was staring you right in the face. It's in the LEGO Palace Cinema set from the modular buildings theme. And if you know anything about LEGO, you know there are a ton of references in every set from this theme. Some of them are super hard to spot, but just take a look at this one. The movie posters on the side of the theater are quite literally all LEGO related. There's the brick separator, which is fittingly an end-of-the-world type movie, a movie about the mystery of the monorail, which is probably referencing the fact that LEGO stopped making monorail sets for no reason, and the third one, well, that's just a regular old love movie. But still, sets in the modular buildings theme have loads of references to LEGO, like the ones in the Assembly Square set. There's a lot going on in this one, but I want to focus on the apartments that the minifigures live in. Notice anything about this picture? This mom and her baby clearly have the box for the Cafe Corner set, but it doesn't end here. Once they go upstairs, not only are they building a micro version of the Eiffel Tower, but the Cafe Corner is already built and is just sitting on the couch in the back. But that's still not all. If we look at this room from a different angle, there's also a micro build of the Market Street set and the Green Grocer set up on the shelf. So in just this one room, there were 5 references to LEGO. Isn't that crazy? The only thing that might be crazier is the subscribe glitch going around on YouTube. Apparently, it's impossible to subscribe to certain channels right now. So go try and subscribe and let me know if you're able to do it. Anyways, getting back to the references, the next few are in the LEGO Rescue Reinforcements set from the LEGO movie theme. And no, the reference isn't just that these builds were in the movie. I want to focus on the minifigures, specifically the ones with black hair pieces. Notice anything about the shirts they're wearing? Something about this guy's shirt looks oddly familiar. I just can't put my finger on it. Oh yeah, that's the Blacktron logo. You know, the villains from the space theme. And the girl he's with? I guess she picked up a piece of merch from the Fabuland theme before it got shut down back in 1989. Both of these minifigures are referencing parts of LEGO that were super famous back in the day, so it's no wonder it went over everyone's head. Another reference that's super subtle like this, but still plain as day, is in the Fire Brigade set. No, seriously, it's here. You haven't noticed it yet? It's the year on the front of the fire station. Oh, you still don't know? That's the year LEGO was founded. I know there's a lot of confusion around this, since LEGO has a bunch of different years that are super well known, but 1932 is the official birth year. Moving on from that though, the next reference is in the LEGO Scooby-Doo Mummy Museum set, and this is another one that's hiding in plain sight. You might think it has something to do with the map that Shaggy's holding, but it's way simpler than that. On the right side of the tomb, Johnny Thunder is just chilling there, posted up with a diamond he probably robbed from the tomb. This guy was the main character in the LEGO Adventurers theme, specifically the Egypt sub-theme. It's been retired for over 20 years now, so clearly LEGO doesn't care if something hasn't been around for a while. If they want to reference it, they will. They've even gone as far as referencing the inspiration for the original LEGO colors. Let me show you what I mean. In the Parisian restaurant set, an artist lives on the top floor. Their art is obviously very modern and contemporary, but what you might not know is that this art is actually a reference to the work of Piet Mondrian, a painter from New York who was born in 1872, but it goes deeper. Because of how similar LEGO's original color palette is to Mondrian's work, it's widely believed that Old Kirk was using it as an inspiration for the original colors. So not only is this LEGO art a reference to a real artist, but it's a reference to the man who inspired Old Kirk to give us the famous colors we all know and love. It's definitely one of my favorite references in LEGO, but there's one other one that might just be better: the story of Jedi Bob. In 2024, LEGO released a set called Jedi Bob Starfighter. It's a small set, so a lot of people skipped right over it, but all the LEGO Star Wars superfans like me were losing their minds. See, back in 2002, LEGO released the LEGO Star Wars Republic gunship set. It had 8 minifigures in it, all of which were super well known in the movies, except for one. You see this yellow Jedi right here? Well, he actually doesn't exist in the Star Wars universe, which means that LEGO just added him to the set for no apparent reason. Here's where it gets good though. LEGO has these books called visual dictionaries, where it's just a bunch of information about whatever theme is on the cover. In 2008, they dropped one for LEGO Star Wars, and this is where Jedi Bob finally got his name. As you can see, LEGO not only gave him a name, but made his backstory very mysterious except for one thing: that he flew a Republic gunship. This was clearly talking about the set from 2002. And with the set they released in 2024, they officially brought the story of Jedi Bob full circle. See why I was freaking out? I mean, this reference was literally 22 years in the making. This isn't the only time LEGO's done something like this, though. Remember in Season 1, Episode 5 of Ninjago, when Zane had a little mix-up with the laundry and ended up wearing a pink gi? Obviously, this was a one-time thing, but fans were absolutely obsessed with this version of Zane, and wanted LEGO to make him into a real minifigure. The episode dropped way back in 2012, but after 8 years, the people finally got what they wanted in the LEGO Ninjago Prime Empire Gamers Market set. Just like Jedi Bob, this was a super sick way of bringing a niche LEGO character full circle. I absolutely love when LEGO references stuff from the past like this. And another one is in the Fortrix set from the Next Zone Knights theme. This theme never really got off the ground. It started in 2016 and ended just 2 years later in 2018. The entire idea behind it was a futuristic medieval blend, which is pretty obvious when you look at this set. It looks a lot like a castle, so it makes sense why there's a reference to the castle theme all over it. You can find the numbers 375-6075 in a bunch of different spots. But how exactly are these numbers references to the castle theme? Well, the first castle set ever made was released in Europe and was set number 375. And the first castle set ever released in America was set number 6075. So both of these numbers are actually super important in LEGO castle history. We've seen a few historical references so far besides this one, but none of them are quite like the one in the Titanic set. I'm sure you guys have all seen the YouTuber Tiago Catarino before, so I'm sure you'll also know that he used to work as a designer at LEGO. But here's where I get to the stuff you probably don't know. Tiago designed the ship in a bottle set and added a cool little Easter egg of his initials to the set. Nothing too flashy, but just enough to let the people know that he designed it. Clearly the letters are very distinct. I mean, you can't mistake them for anything else. So why are they on a gravestone piece deep in the Titanic set? Well, I'll tell you. Years before LEGO even considered designing the Titanic, Tiago pitched the idea to the creator expert team while he was still working there. Tiago claims that nothing came of it, but clearly the designers have a different opinion. This gravestone piece was put there for one reason and one reason only: to honor the idea that Tiago had while he was still at LEGO. It's a small reference that's super easy to miss, and honestly, if Tiago didn't talk about it, I don't think I ever would have known about it. But I can't say the same for the reference in the Monkey Kid City of Lanterns set. I mean, this one feels like it was made for me. The set doesn't come with that many pieces, but even so, there's still a lot going on. I talked about the Infomaniac Easter egg in a different video, but there's a reference to Lego in here that I can't believe I missed the first time. At the top of the set, there's this weird serpent wrapped around some brick-built Lego pieces and the Lego logo. But this isn't just any serpent. This is Brickley, a super famous Lego serpent who's in a bunch of different Lego stores all over the world. I saw this guy all the time in Lego stores when I was a kid, so I really am shocked that I missed him in this set the first time I covered it. Lego absolutely loves putting micro builds in their sets, like the ones we saw in the Palace Cinema set. But funnily enough, there's one in another Monkey Kid set hiding in plain sight. In the Megapolis City set, there's this brick-built duck at the top of the city, just like Brickley. But if you don't know the history of Lego toys, there's no way you'd recognize him. This duck is actually a brick-built version of the wooden duck from way back in the day. See, when Lego was founded in 1932, they weren't making plastic toys. It was actually just one guy making wood toys, and this duck became one of the most popular ones. Another set with a super recognizable micro build is the A-frame cabin set. Since this set is so famous, you've probably heard of the Easter egg where all of the stones in the back are actually made with Thor's hammer. But did you know that if you go to the bedroom in the cabin, you can find a micro-built version of the treehouse set from Lego Ideas? That isn't all though. There's also a newspaper tile piece on the ground talking about the donut thief. Oh, wait, I haven't told you about that yet, have I? Well, in 2019, a guy named Chris McVie designed the modular police station set, which was released that same year. And in the instructions, there's a picture of him holding a donut, which I'll absolutely be coming back to. Basically, the police station had a donut thief. Someone was stealing all of their donuts and they couldn't figure out who. So it was a huge story in the paper, hence the tile piece being in this set and the A-frame cabin. But now, let me talk about Chris. Like I said, he designed the set, and I guess he really liked the idea of being the donut thief in the story. So not only did he include a minifigure wearing the exact outfit he was wearing in the instructions, but there's even a picture on Lego's website of him stealing a donut. It's always fun when a reference has a deep backstory like this. So let me tell you about another one. In 2022, Lego remastered one of the most popular sets from the space theme, the Galaxy Explorer. So of course they had to spruce it up with a couple of Lego references. And what better way to do it than with tile pieces? The first one is Blacktron getting picked up on the radar, but this one isn't nearly as cool as this other one. One of the tile pieces has a live video feed going, and the first time I saw it, I didn't question anything. It wasn't until later that I learned that this is actually a Tahoe canister from the Bionicle TV show. This one completely blew my mind. I mean, this is by far one of the most subtle references I've seen, hands down. But it isn't the only time Lego's referenced something super niche from Bionicle, because there's also one in the Paranormal Intercept bus set from the Hidden Side theme. Considering how small this set is, you might think that it's pretty difficult to get a Bionicle reference in here. But if I've proven anything to you in this video, it's that all you need is one tile piece. There's a little computer set up on the back of the bus with two monitors. One of them has some retro-looking arcade game on it, but the other one has the original Bionicle video game from 2003. This game hasn't even been playable since 2005, so the fact that it's in a set from 2019 is genuinely unreal. This one is hidden so well that I could only find one real picture of it online. What you're looking at are the innards of the Millennium Falcon cockpit, but these pieces here look almost too perfect to be an accident. This is without a doubt a reference to none other than Lando Calrissian. You can find this Easter egg in the Ultimate Collector's Series Millennium Falcon to be exact, and considering Lando's history with the ship, it only makes sense to bake him into the build. This one is extremely hard to spot though, so let me show you one that's just as purposeful, but a whole lot easier to see. Not too long ago, Lego added a brand new sub-theme to Lego Star Wars called the Starship Collection, and the whole point of it was to make a smaller version of super famous Lego Star Wars ships strictly for decoration. One of these ships is the Executor Super Star Destroyer, which if you know anything about Star Wars, you know that this is one of the biggest ships in the entire universe. Since this version is part of the Starship Collection sub-theme though, it was scaled down to size. If you paid attention during the intro, you would have noticed that the brick-built version of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker were just made with studs. And you can actually find something really similar in this set. It has to be taken apart to see it, but these studs aren't here for no reason. They actually represent the super famous bounty hunter scene from The Empire Strikes Back. You know, the one where Vader specifically tells Boba Fett, no disintegrations.
No disintegrations.
This is one of the easiest and most fun ways to slip an Easter egg into a Lego set. But let me show you that Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker one that I keep talking about. It's in this mini version of the Death Star 2 set, and even though it would fit perfectly into the Starship collection, it actually isn't a part of it. It was technically made to celebrate May 4th in 2023, but who cares about that? Where are Vader and Luke? Well, if you open the panel 2 from the left of the super laser, that's where you can find these 4 studs. They're here to represent when they fought in the Emperor's throne room.
I will not fight you, Father.
And considering how much happened in there, I'd say this is a worthy cameo. But not every cameo in LEGO Star Wars has to be this discreet. Sometimes all you have to do is check the back of the set. This exact scenario played out in the Trash Compactor Diorama set. This one pays homage to the scene where Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie were almost crushed to death in a trash compactor on the Death Star. And the only reason they survived was because R2-D2 and C-3PO disabled it. These 2 droids are clearly the heroes of this scene. So when you flip the set around and see them on the back, you realize that everything is exactly where it should be. R2 is there messing with the controls, and 3PO is right there next to him, doing everything he can, even if that was just grieving the gang's deaths.
Listen to them. They're dying, R2. It's all my fault.
These 2 droids can be recognized just about anywhere you put them. So would you believe me if I told you they've been in not 1, but 2 LEGO Indiana Jones sets? We all know that the creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, also made the Indiana Jones movies. But how in the world could LEGO designers slip these 2 into 2 sets from a completely different movie? Well, Indiana Jones is known for stealing artifacts from very old places. And a lot of times there are hieroglyphs on the walls, just to show how old these places really are. Now, if you look at this picture of the Indiana Jones and the Lost Tomb set from 2008, you can very clearly see R2 and 3PO on the tile piece at the top of the set. Once you know it's there, it's literally impossible to miss. But the crossover doesn't end here. In the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you can find R2 and 3PO as hieroglyphs in the actual movie. Now, fast forward 42 years to when the Escape from the Lost Tomb set dropped, and you can find these guys in basically the exact same place in the LEGO set. Just like the last one, once you know it's there, it's impossible to miss. Okay, I've been talking a lot about cameos, so why don't we switch gears so I can show you some Easter eggs that are functional parts of a set. The first one is a super famous one in the R2-D2 set from 2021. Remember the scene in Return of the Jedi when Luke was about to walk into the Sarlacc pit, but then he used the diving board to fly into the air and R2 launched his lightsaber to him? Well, LEGO certainly remembers it, because look what they added to this set. Luke's lightsaber is literally sitting right there. R2 carrying his lightsaber was a huge part of this plan, so it only makes sense that LEGO included it in the set, just like Lando with the Millennium Falcon. Who's another famous droid LEGO could do something like this with? Well, the answer is BB-8. LEGO released a set for this little guy back in 2017. But unlike R2, he doesn't really have some special scene where he has to hide something. So what could LEGO do for him? Well, a cool little trick he did was use a lighter to give a thumbs up. I mean, he did it so much, it was basically his catchphrase. So what choice did LEGO have other than to include that same lighter in the set? This lighter was literally a part of BB-8, so I don't think people would have been too happy if LEGO left it out, like what happened with the headless AT-ST set. I don't think they want anything like that happening ever again. Anyways, the next small detail actually isn't really that small, and it isn't really in a LEGO set. In fact, the item is only sold by itself, and it's a reference to one of the longest running jokes in Star Wars. When we first meet Luke on Tatooine, he sits down and has some blue milk with his aunt and uncle. Don't ask me why. I have no idea why they chose the color blue. This joke kept going for years, and still does to this day. But what made it even better was when they had Luke drink green milk in The Last Jedi. Not only is it a funny reference to the scene from A New Hope, but it also represents the change in his lightsaber color, from blue to green. But why am I telling you all this? Is it because there's a secret blue milk carton in every set with a Luke minifigure? Or is there some blue milk spilled on the floor in the back of the Landspeeder set? Nope. Not at all. LEGO actually gave away a blue milk Luke Skywalker minifigure to people who bought the deluxe version of LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. And to this day, I'm still beating myself up for not buying it. But yeah, if you've seen this minifigure around, now you know why it exists. You can find the answer to a bunch of tiny little secrets like this if you know where to look. But the best thing you can do is know about a language called Orubesh. It's the main language spoken in the Star Wars universe, and just like most languages, they have their own alphabet too. I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this, but there are a million Easter eggs you can find in LEGO Star Wars sets just by knowing this language even exists. I'll only show you a few, because neither of us want to be here for 5 hours. But the first one is is in the Ultimate Collector Series Cantina set. You can find this sticker on a tile piece inside the bar, and clearly this is not the English language. When translated to Orubesh, it reads wanted. But why are R2 and 3PO on a wanted poster in the cantina? Well, considering how they left Mos Eisley, you know, with the Empire chasing after them, they probably got put on a wanted list after they escaped. Another set with some Orubeshian secrets is the Ewok Village set, one of which is actually extremely dark. But if you know anything about Ewoks, you know that they're not as cute and innocent as they look. I'll start with the tame one though. This word with a heart around it translates to Leia, and it's assumed that Han did this at one point or another. So he won't say it, but he'll carve it. Okay, tough guy.
I love you.
I know.
Now, the piece that's next to this one is where the dark stuff comes in. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Ewoks not only kill stormtroopers, but they also eat them. That's why they have a million Imperial helmets lying around, and that's why they use them as drums. Now, looking at this piece, notice how there are a bunch of tally marks around the Scout Trooper helmet. Well, in case you haven't put it together, whoever lives in this tree is saying that they've killed however many Scout Troopers are tallied here. And that means that they probably ate them too. So unfortunately, these little guys are a lot more evil than they look. And even Lego knows it. Not a lot of people know deep cut facts like this, but want to know what they do know? The opening scene to A New Hope. You know, the one where it goes... Yeah, that one. Well, the designers of the Star Wars logo set knew they couldn't leave it without any Easter eggs. So if you remove the top panel of the S and T, you can find a micro version of the Tantive ship and the Star Destroyer that was chasing after it. We know from the movies that the Star Destroyer caught up to the Tantive and trapped it in some weird docking area under the ship. And this is the part where I give LEGO designers all the props in the world. Because in the Imperial Star Destroyer set from 2019, not only is this dock part of the build, but there's even a mini Tantive included in the set that can be attached to it. This is one of the best examples of an Easter egg being brought full circle. Besides my goat Jedi Bob, of course. I mean, it easily deserves to be in the LEGO Hall of Fame. As for the rest of the references and small details in this video, I'm going to be showing you some stuff you'd only know is there if you built the set yourself. Starting with this sticker of the shield generators on Hoth in the AT-AT set. The first time we saw an AT-AT was on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, and their main target on that planet were the shield generators, so they could completely annihilate the Rebels' base. So this sticker is actually a really nice touch. That isn't even the best part about this set though. It may not be a Star Wars reference, but it's still sick nonetheless. If you take off some panels on the back of the AT-AT, you'll find octane barrels just sitting there. This crossover is even more surprising than seeing R2 and 3PO in those Indiana Jones sets, but doesn't that just make it better? I know what you want to see though. You want to see more deep cuts like the Stormtrooper kill count before the video ends. I got you. Let me show you a few. In the Darth Vader's castle set, there's a very important piece of Sith technology stored at the bottom. It's sitting on top of a podium, like something Indy would steal. But he should know better than to touch this, because this is a Sith holocron. A holocron is basically an artifact that stores a bunch of information. So the only reason this one in particular is dangerous is because it's Darth Vader's. That's not all for this set though. In a different part of it, you can pull a hidden compartment out of the ground and find a red Kyber crystal. They didn't even mention these things in the movies, so if you recognize the name, then you probably already know all about them. These last few references are going to be all about Mando. Remember how Grogu literally could not keep his hands off of the silver shift knob in the Razor Crest? He literally had it in his hands or in his sight at all times, and since it's part of the ship, you can find it clear as day in the cockpit. Unfortunately, LEGO didn't unretire their chrome paint for this piece, which would have been awesome, but that's without a doubt the same silver shift knob. Another obsession Grogu has are eggs. For some reason, he loves eating them, no matter who they belong to. He ate the ones in the Ice Spider's nest, and he also ate the ones that belonged to the Frog Lady. We know for sure that he wasn't supposed to touch the Frog Lady's eggs, since Mando scolded him right after he ate one.
No. That is not food.
But guess what you can find right next to Grogu's carrier in the Razor Crest set? Yup, those are without a doubt the Frog Lady's eggs. There are 10 you can find in total, and they're all used as plate features with the Mario figure that comes with the set. But one of them is in a super weird place. Look at this picture of the set before it's finished. Can you see it? The star is right above this black beam, and it's super tiny. This is by far the hardest one to find in the whole set, but there are over 70 Easter eggs in the X-Men Mansion set, so let me show you some at a rapid-fire pace. This picture is based on a super famous cover from the Days of Future Past comic. 2 turrets are sitting in the front lawn, which was first seen in the Pride of the X-Men TV show. The fire exit is damaged by someone named Pyro, who funnily enough is a mutant with a fire power. The Nightcrawler has a poster which oddly looks like a circus poster, which makes a lot of sense since he was raised in a circus. And a golden pyramid can be found under the floor, which is a reference to the apocalypse made by N. Sahab Noor, otherwise known as the first of the X-Men. Obviously, there are way more that I could talk about, but this next Easter egg is super weird. There's a rumor that you can't subscribe to my channel in 3 seconds or less. Time starts now. Go, go, go! Did you subscribe? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, the next Easter egg is in the Monkey Kid Megapolis City set. Remember how LEGO used to make wooden toys way back in the day? Well, do you also remember that one of their first toys was this wooden duck? Well, take a look at this. A micro version of it is just chilling in the Megapolis City set. It doesn't end there though. There's also a 2x2 tile piece on the back of the duck. But what exactly is this? Well, Monkey Kid himself actually drew this picture in the TV show. So not only is this a 2-in-1 Easter egg, but it represents the bridge between the show and LEGO. LEGO is really good at bringing stuff over from shows or movies to their sets, and one with a super famous and accurate Easter egg is the LEGO Harry Potter Gringotts Bank set. I talked about the Easter egg in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault in a different video, but this time I want to talk about the Sorcerer's Stone. In the Harry Potter universe, we find out that the stone is being kept in Vault 713. Only a very select group of people have this information, but if you go to that vault in the LEGO set, you can find the stone sitting right there behind a wall. Now, Hagrid did end up moving it in the movies, but come on, this is a LEGO set. We can give them some wiggle room. Another set with an Easter egg like this is the Jurassic Park T-Rex Rampage set. Just like every other set in LEGO's catalog, there are tons you can find, but the one I want to tell you about is actually hidden really well. In the movies, we find out that the only reason humans were able to bring dinosaurs back to life was by using frog DNA. So it makes a lot of sense why you're supposed to put a frog piece inside of the dinosaur. Just like that pink Zane minifigure I talked about a few videos ago, if you don't have a ton of Jurassic Park knowledge, this would have went right over your head. Now, most Easter eggs can only be made once, but LEGO actually reused the same Easter egg twice. Almost. In my first video on LEGO Easter eggs, I showed you how Finn got the blood on his helmet censored in the LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens video game. Well, since then, another LEGO video game has been released with the exact same movie in it. So how did LEGO censor it this time? Well, instead of a green splotch, they had Finn find some cake on the battlefield, eat it, and get it all over his helmet. Pretty clever, LEGO. However, it's not as clever as the reference you hid in the LEGO Modular Police Station set. There seems to be a crack in the wall on the back of the station, which is a little weird, but I guess it's nothing out of the ordinary. However, there's a small cell on the other side of this crack with a bed and a toilet. And if you lift the bed up, not only is there a spoon hiding underneath it, but there's also a tunnel that leads to the crack on the outside. But the coolest part about this Easter egg isn't the crack, or the bed, or even the tunnel. It's the spoon. This is a direct reference to the Shawshank Redemption, one of the best prison movies ever made. LEGO always does a super good job with Easter eggs like this. Whether it be the X-Men mansion, Gringotts Bank, or the police station, they're super good at it. And another great example is in the Lord of the Rings Shire set. One of the most well-known scenes in those movies is when Gandalf throws the letter in the fire and reveals the One Ring to Frodo. So, of course, LEGO had to bring that over to the set. But wait a minute, where's the ring? This is just an envelope. Well, just turn the knob on the side, and voila! The ring reveals itself to you just like it did for Frodo in the fireplace. It's super sick, but this next Easter egg is for all my Spider-Man fans. The Ultimate Bridge Battle set has a lot more Easter eggs than the 1962 piece that I covered in a different video, and I think you're really gonna like them. For starters, there's a room at the bottom of the bridge sealed off by some webs, but if you look at the top of one of them, you'll find a camera conveniently pointing at the room. This is probably a reference to the fact that Peter Parker was giving the Daily Bugle all of the pictures of Spider-Man for the newspaper, but it doesn't end here. One of the walls at the bottom of the bridge has Peter Parker's and Gwen Stacy's initials inside of a heart. Obviously, this is a reference to their love, but some fans think that this is a cryptic message telling us that this is the same bridge Gwen died on. That's just a conspiracy, but this next one was confirmed by the set designer. There's a sign for Route 25 on the bridge, but this highway is a lot more significant than you might know. It goes from the eastern tip of Long Island all the way down into Hell's Kitchen, which is exactly where Daredevil is from. A lot of stars had to align for this Easter egg to work, but like I said, the set designer confirmed it, so that's why the sign is even in here. Remember that wooden duck micro build from the Monkey Kid set? Well, you're gonna need to for this next Easter egg, because LEGO actually does this a lot. I showed you something similar in the Lion Knight's Castle set, but did you know that you can find 2 micro builds in the A-frame cabin set. The first one is the typewriter piece on the desk to reference the typewriter set, which honestly is a bit of a stretch. But this is absolutely a mini version of the LEGO Ideas Treehouse. There's no denying that. It's not often that LEGO includes a reference not everyone is sold on. But for a specific one in the Friends apartment set, if LEGO didn't tell us about it, I'm not sure how many people would have actually believed it. Monica's kitchen has a giant turkey sitting on the table, and since it can't fit on her head like it did in Season 5, Episode 8, it definitely isn't a reference to that. Luckily for us, LEGO listed a bunch of references for this set on their website, so we were able to find out that this turkey pays homage to all the Thanksgiving episodes Friends did over the years. But this isn't the only reference on Monica's kitchen table. There's also a brick-built version of Phoebe's dollhouse when it got lit on fire. It's by far one of the most well-known things to happen in Friends, so of course LEGO had to include it. Not every Easter egg has to be based on something else though. LEGO can get pretty creative with Easter eggs, and a good example of that is in the Minifigure tribute set. It has some pretty sick Easter eggs, like the blue wristband that represents the one you get when you tour the LEGO house. But I want to show you something on the inside of the set. Pirates are almost always sailing the high seas, so what's the one thing they'd probably be thinking about while they're out there? If you need a little help, the island on the inside of the minifigure's head might be able to give you the answer. This is what I meant by LEGO being creative. Clearly, they never forget even the most important details, and it's obvious when you see what they did in the Sesame Street set. This set is pretty small, so there isn't a whole lot they could have done here, and unfortunately, not every character from Sesame Street got a minifigure in this set. But like I said, LEGO never misses the details. So not only is there a painting of Abby Cadabby on one of the walls, but they even added Oscar the Grouch's worm Slimy right outside of his trash can. There's also a big tile piece for Biff and Sully's construction company, a picture of Zoe and Rosita right next to Elmo's bed, and Big Berg's drawing of Mr. Hooper. Basically, the whole gang is here, which is especially good since this set was obviously made for kids. Moving on from that though, there's actually a really cool Easter egg in the mini Disney Castle set. Fun fact, the Disney Castle is actually the same one used in Cinderella, so technically this is a set about Cinderella's castle. I'm sure the Disney superfans already knew that, but LEGO lets you know this fact in a super subtle way. If you take the top off of the central walkway, you'll find a tile piece of her glass slippers hiding on the inside. There's also a tile piece of the castle from what looks to be the intro to Everything Disney, which is a really nice touch. Obviously, these Easter eggs are pretty hard to find, but you know what set has them front and center? The Krusty Burger from The Simpsons, which is pretty crazy since this set literally just came out. The first few are on the back of the store. There's the obvious graffiti tag from Bart, but then there's also a sticker promoting Sideshow Bob's campaign for mayor. So of course LEGO had to accompany this with a rake. Then there's a missing poster for the Krusty Burglar, which of course is referencing the scene where a random kid in the crowd screams, "Stop! Stop! He's already dead." But the best one by far is at the grease trap. In Season 10, Homer starts a business selling grease, and the grease he was selling came straight from the Krusty Burger. He used a shovel to load the grease into Marge's car, which unfortunately isn't in this set, but the reference still holds true. Now for this next one, I want to take you to the Monkey Kid City of Lanterns set. Since this is a city, you already know there are tons of Easter eggs here, but the one I want to show you is actually really hard to spot. Because the city is so big, there's an information center that people can use to find their way around. And I know it sounds crazy, but the Easter egg is actually hiding right here in plain sight. See this guy on the tile piece with an eye on his head? Well, he's actually the Infomaniac from the Lego Island video game. This is one of the most subtle references I've seen in LEGO, so if you knew who this guy was, give yourself a pat on the back. Anyways, the last Easter eggs I want to show you are in the Sanctum Sanctorum set. Say that 5 times fast. Since this is a Marvel set, of course you're gonna have your pictures of Doctor Strange and ads to join the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But not only does this set have a crazy play function, but it also has a super sick Easter egg similar to the Route 25 one in the Bridge Battle set. Right next to the ad for S.H.I.E.L.D., there's a giant portal that only experienced sorcerers can access. Once inside, you'll find some of Strange's most powerful artifacts, like the Book of Cagliostro, guarded by golden chains and the Time Stone. But the Easter egg is way cooler than this. At the top of the building, there's an ad for Captain America's exhibit at the Bricksonian Museum. Now, this may seem like nothing, but let me tell you why it's so cool. First of all, this is a direct reference to this exact exhibit in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier movie. But best of all, the Sanctum Sanctorum is in New York City, the same place the Smithsonian Museum is in real life. See what I mean? Just like Route 25, a lot of things had to line up for LEGO to be able to put this Easter egg in this set. But what was your favorite Easter egg in this video? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.